Hey guys, welcome to the track walk of Catalunya, Spain. I like to go over what I think an important rule of a track is on one of these, and I would say here this is a good track to learn how to widen the radius of your corner. And what I mean by that is the less you're turning, the faster you can go, right? So finding little ways to make that radius a little wider, like watch up here, there's several points where you can actually take the car across the curbs and across the verge line, 2 tires over, and make your entrances wider. There's a couple of points where we're going to do that on this track. There's also points where we're going to want to kind of cut inside the curbs. I might use the term commit to a curb in this video. And what I mean by that in this particular track is don't just drive onto the red and whites. Drive across the red and white, and we're going to see that coming up on these next couple of spots. Go across the red and white and onto the green curb. Like, watch this. Don't get on the red and white. Just get on the green, bam. Lots of commitment to the curbs. The general rule here is that the green overflow is good, but what we're going to see in Sector 3 is those yellow turtle curbs, which are just flat out evil. There's also spots of this track that we've already passed where I would say it's you need to learn how to lift and not brake. Just learn how to lift and let the car just kind of take a settle for a moment and then get right back on the gas. This is a setup dependent track like that. Another thing you could do is just simply crank the downforce way up. And you may not need those lifts, but you're going to be slower down the straightaways. So hopefully you'll enjoy. Now you'll get to see the turn by turns.
All right, let's get down to business here about how we go corner to corner. Remember, it's important to get two wheels over these curbs often, and I index off to 100 here. I'm going to brake probably just a little bit past that next 50. Turn in basically so I can get to this point. I want to make sure that I'm over these curbs, and this is if you're ever auto-crossing anything like that, we use the term backside to cones. Here's a spot where you want to backside a couple of curbs though. You want to hold this apex until you get the car basically around this curb and probably about right here if you can see my mouse, just under that 211 that's on the speed trap, and then you're going to hook it back around to the left and kind of hold that left curb until you are around here. Now this curb will try to hook the car, and I do like the idea of using it though. Just be careful picking up the throttle. Now here's a spot where based on your setup, if you've got a really high downforce setup, you can probably just go full throttle all the way up the hill. If you're on a really light fuel load and a good car, like this Red Bull is a good car, it can probably just go wide open up the throttle on the hill and say a qualifying run. But if you're on a full fuel run, if you're on low downforce, somewhere along here you're going to have to lift your gas. And it's going to be important that you don't get too excited and be wide open throttle too soon and try to go up the hill wide open throttle too early, because if you have to lift at the top of the hill, it's going to kill your momentum. And it's going to set you up for a pass if anybody's around you. So if you figure out that your car is going to need that lift, it's going to be essential that you do that lift down here at the bottom of the hill and not at the top of the hill, so that you can just go wide open throttle all the way up the hill. And I would say if I nail it just perfectly, you will, by the way, enter from the left side of the track. So you'll want to hold left and start your turn in about maybe about where that green ends. For me, it's just kind of an intuitive point. And you'll bring it into this red and white curb. And if you kiss that curb momentarily, that's fine. But you're going to, it's more important that you just be really fast on the gas, carrying the car up the hill. And where you want to end up, like I said, if you kiss the curb momentarily, you're fine. But if you try to hug that curb, you're going to be wrong. When this curb begins, you want two tires to touch it and just maybe barely go over it. And I would say it's better to be over the curb rather than driving on the curb. This is where car placement is critical. Going around that last corner, it wasn't critical. But if you want a really fast lap, you need two tires over these curbs, and you will brake at that Pirelli bridge hard and briefly. And you'll go down, in a race I go to fifth gear. Maybe if I'm trying to cut a really fast qualifying lap, I go to fourth. And this end of the curb comes up really quick, and you'll go down 2 gears. Now you want to aim for that right-hand curb, and you might not quite get to it, and that's okay, but you want to come darn close. I tinkered around with my setup, and I did manage to make my car not quite have the hook, but it's like the car understeers, it doesn't quite want to go for the curb, and then suddenly it kind of pops towards the curb just a little bit. And right when it makes that pop, that's when you can finally take some wheel back out of the car and start giving it the gas again. If you're not patient around this corner, you're going to have to lift because you're going to run out of track around this corner where you can't even see. Pay attention to this track map. This is basically a really fast hairpin. And so it's very important that I trail brake into this corner. If you want to go watch another video on that, I trail brake in. Like I said, I'm waiting on that rotation, that moment when it pops, kind of turns in towards the curb. Now, you'll see this bridge from a long way out, and at this point, it's like, my way is, it's like I aim for the inside of the track, but I get on the gas and I open up the wheel just a little bit, and the car carries right to the outside. This red and white curb, very friendly. And I kind of aim to be under the outside of this Rolex advertisement. The next part is very, very tricky. As you go underneath this Rolex advertisement, you're aiming for this right-hand curb, and you will put 2 tires over it. And this is kind of a timing thing. Maybe I brake when I run out of gear. Maybe I kind of have a little intuitive 1-2 brake. But you'll just barely see this white mark of the curb. And if you have a heavy car, if your car is maybe really downforce heavy, maybe you can wait until you see that, and then you need to brake very, very hard. But if you see that, that needs to be your clue to, ooh, I'm a little too late. And you kind of time, and I know this is a bad marker because you can't see it until it's too late, but it's better than nothing. My way of coming around here again is timing the corner. And this is another very slow corner. If you look at it, the track map's kind of hiding behind the word C, but this is a hairpin turn. I mean, you will brake. To me, it helps to stay out here very, very late. You can't quite see my wheel, but I'll start turning just about before that curb ends, and I'm going to go down to 3rd gear. Maybe not, probably not quite 2nd. It's like the bottom of 3rd gear. If you get close to this curb, that's great. If you touch this curb, perfect. But it's more important that you be focusing on trying to open up and get a better exit than it is that you be trying to slow down too much and hit that curb. I have tried to nail perfect track placement here and overslowed my car. It's more important that you carry that little bit of speed and be worried more about getting to exit than it is about hitting this apex point. This is another, you can really abuse track limits on the exit. I've even stayed out here and been going so fast that I couldn't get the car back on track, and even used that little grassy patch up ahead to get back on track. So you don't want to go too far to the left. I would say go about the middle of the track, because you're going to enter the next corner from the right as well. And you couldn't quite see this point because there was kind of a dip. But as you come up, you're going to want to brake. As you come up and see this white and the red and white curb beginning, go about halfway down. And this is another spot. The marshals will get you for abusing track limits here. Be careful with your wheel input. If you are like at absolute full send on your wheel as you touch this curb, it might bite you. It doesn't seem to bite me very often. But I'm already starting to just open my wheel up just a little bit as I go over the curb, and notice that my gas, I'm not quite wide open throttle. My eyes are drawing a trajectory up this hill already. I'm already looking for my path over this next curb, under the bridge, and getting this thing ready to go. These curbs are friendly. This sausage curb right here, it's way more intimidating looking than it is. I drive over it nearly every lap. I mean, the car seems to bump a little bit, but it's not that bad. I mean, there's way worse bumps in F1 2020. There's way worse curbs, which we'll be coming to in Sector 3. All right, part 2 of the video. Sorry about that. But again, you want to be looking up the straightaway. Don't worry about that curb. Now, as the left-hand curb that I didn't really show the entrance to, but this is the spot that you want to be coming to on that last picture, as that spot starts to end, that's going to be your turn-in point. Now, more important than your turn-in point is that it's crucial that you not brake here. The brakes are going to upset the balance on your car, and depending on your fuel load, depending on your downforce setup, possibly even depending on the career car you're driving, especially if you're driving an antique car on this game, you want to just make a lift here. I have not driven any car that I thought needed a brake, but I haven't driven like the 88 McLaren here, for instance, right? So you want to let the car, again, cross the green curbing up ahead. So you do a quick lift, maybe a downshift, and you'll come up right here. Now, I don't really use the bridge to drive anymore. For me, this becomes a rhythm that I've done this so many times. I just know how to do this by rhythm. But I might be aiming to go like underneath the H and DHL. To me, it's more important. It's very, very important that you use this curb. This is very important to a fast lap time. It won't really mess you up, and as you shouldn't really be worrying about this access road, but you want to use this inside curb, and you want to be back to the throttle. Now, if you're on disc curbing, I would not drive out here. This red means stop. Do not use this. This will throw you into the white. This will throw you into the gravel. This is kind of an emergency. Oh, crap, I was trying to cut a fast lap, which is what I was doing when I did this particular shot. I was trying to run a fast lap. I ended up out here. If you're not straight when you go over this curb, and I don't mean straightening the wheel like, oh, I was at 90 degrees, now I'm at 80 degrees, turned wheel. I mean, you better have that wheel pointed straight when you hit this curb. To me, I would aim to just have the left side tires right on the verge line. Now, as I come down the straightaway, get it back to the right half, there's a lot of things you can index off of here. I brake kind of I'm a rhythm type of driver, and I'm just kind of driving by a feel, and I just know when I get about halfway between 150 and 125, I gauge it with my depth perception, and that's where I get on my brakes. If that's not working for you, you could try this little red mark in the wall. You could try that little caution light, and you're going to be doing your turning at or just past the bridge. This is a very sharp turn. I would give a word of advice to anybody relatively new to the game is that if you ever go to real life track stuff, new people tend to be trying to go too fast in a slow part of track, and then they're slow in the fast part of tracks. Like if you go back a couple of turns, that blind crest hill, that was a fast part of track, and you need to be fast, not slowing down for it too much. This is the slow part of the track. Look at my wheel. The wheel's kind of covered up by my little chrome, my sharing icon here, but I've got that wheel upside down, all right? This is a sharp hairpin turn. And the curb here, if you get on that green curb, it seems like it just screws up the balance of the car and then you're delayed getting back to throttle. I would say if you kiss the red and white, you're okay. But even if you just get really close to that verge line, you're fine. I would say that in a short turn, there's another rule to a short turn, that is that you want to save a lot of distance here. So I would say if you come out to the verge line, you're perfect. But if you end up a little hot and you need to go out over it, you're okay. But it's going to mess up your rhythm a little bit. Now this curb, it seemed like this curb, if you're wide open throttle as you go over it, it will like full launch you. But if you just kind of breathe the throttle as you go over this curb, you're great. And then make a straight line for that right-hand turn ahead, and almost like you're going to kiss that next right-hand curb on the distance. This was not being quite patient enough. As you're going around that right turn, just it's a little slow, be patient, and when you see this little orange pylon to the right of my wording there, that's where you know, okay, stop being patient. Let's start feeding the gas, letting the car go wide, get on this next straightaway. You will cross these curbs, and this is going to be the last time you're going to do this for a while, as far as getting onto green and crossing the curb. This is not what you're going to see when you come around that last curb because you're still going uphill. And as you crest that hill, the crest of the hill is your brake marker. Because you're driving up, it's like you're looking at sky, trees, and grandstand. You crest that hill, and then you see the track again. And as you see the track again, that's where you're going to brake. Now, notice here what has just shown up on the horizon, and when you go drive this in reality, you'll see what I'm talking about. That as the curb starts to end ahead, the red and white part of the curve ends, and then you see on the right-hand side of the track, there's one of them yellow sausage curbs that are just flat out evil. And as you start to see that track turn around, as you start to see that curb, that's where you know I need to be braking. You're going to brake, get to the curb. I don't have a picture there. Now, if you end up out on this excess, it's okay. I wouldn't say this is important. I would say even if you were 2/3 of the way across the track, you'd be fine. But you're going to want to hustle back to the right half of the track, use that Fanatic Bridge as your brake marker, and then turn late enough that you can kind of backside 2 more curbs like I was talking about at the beginning of the lap. But this time, you don't want to be on those yellow curbs. You just want to kind of kiss those red and white curbs. As you come out of this corner, you're going to be in about the middle of the track, and then you're going to cut right and then backside that next curb. Now, if you are the kind of person who likes to abuse track limits, there is a way to do this, but you don't want to go full throttle because the game seems to know when you're going really fast and you actually benefited. But there is a way you can kind of cheat the track limits as long as you're on regular and not strict track limits. And that is if you can get your left side tires to go across that white curb and maybe that red curb right there, and then come up and cross also on this curb. I mean, if you totally cheat it and go right on the green, it's going to get you. But if you at least touch this curb, and as long as you don't do it going too fast, mysterious that I would say that, it's sometimes will let you get away with that little track cut right there. Now, if you miss your mark and you go over this yellow curb, it's going to bite you. It's going to launch the car right when you're trying to get back to throttle. What you really, and if you're trying to be honest, you want to just kind of backside that red and white curb, much like this picture. Now, gingerly back to throttle. If you need to use that excess over here, that green excess curb, you're okay. But if the car doesn't seem like it wants to go out there, don't force it. There's an inside curb up ahead that's kind of evil. I would say leave yourself a foot or so. I mean, the car placement's not critical. What's really critical is that you're on the, and let's go back here a minute. You might need a little lift here to set this corner up because and if you end up hitting the brakes, you're probably going to mess up the straightaway. You might need to go hustle, lift, just kind of breathe the throttle for a moment and then kind of get right back to the gas as you go around this corner. But I would say it's one of them corners you want to be on the gas on. And if the car wants to go out over onto the green, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And there you go. And then just launch it down straight away and do it all again. Thanks for watching. I'll now give you an uninterrupted lap to watch.
That's the program complete. This is some decent data, although far from optimal. It could still